All right, so welcome to the July coordinating meeting for WebTide, and thanks for any folks who may be tuning in online. So I went ahead and banged out a few quick notes for us to kind of go over based off of prior meetings, so that we can kind of get updates out there. So did y'all have an opportunity to discuss video software for putting the meetings online
We
beyond Google Hangouts?
we did, and actually Kim reached out to me to test Zoom, and I didn't have time. So we'll get that tested by the next meeting.
Okay.
So her and I'll just hammer through that.
Okay.
And we'll have some updates on whether or not it's actually workable.
Okay.
And how,
And you said it's Zoom?
Right. Zoom.
Zoom?
Oh, did I say Zoom? I'm wrong.
Okay, so Zoom. It sounds cool. And the bandwidth latency that we experience using anything hosted like Google Hangouts really eats us alive.
Mhm.
So if that gets us away from that issue, that would be super duper. Okay. The WP Canvas viewing on Friday. Do we have place?
Yes, everything's reserved. I've just got to send out my email.
Okay.
I'm working on that today, but I should have it out this afternoon.
Okay.
Will it be all day? Yeah, I'm just gonna let it stream 3 rooms in Gordon Palmer, and you just gonna. And I have on the website. I have like what room is which breakout session and such. So yeah. So
Okay.
I think
Awesome.
there's a pretty good lunch break between them, maybe 2 hours. But other than that,
It's pretty consistent programming. Okay. Fantastic. So the July meetup, are we still on board with StratCom doing food? Okay. Are there any additional details you need from us? Okay. Who's going to cater, just out of curiosity?
I'm not certain.
Okay. When you know that, can you send us a note? Because there's a place I can put that on the website, and that will give people a little bit of a view if they have certain dietary restrictions, for instance, so they'll know if they need to bring in anything. Like if Dreamland is catering, then people might want to bring in their bucket of broccoli or whatever. That's right. So the High Ed Web meetup, where are we on that?
We had a meeting yesterday. It was myself and Kathy Morris, and we submitted our proposal to Higher Ed Web, so we're just waiting to hear back if it's been accepted or not. We have 2 tentative dates. We have September 13th, and we have October 11th as a second choice. We have to list two dates. So first choice is September 13th. Second choice is October 11th. And we reserved rooms in Lloyd. So for September 13th, we have room 228 and 226. On 10/11, we reserved Lloyd room 228 and 324. So once we hear back from Higher Ed Web, then we can go from there and then open up for proposals.
Wonderful. How many institutions have done meetups so far?
There's one.
One.
And it was in Springfield, Missouri. I forgot the name of the school, but that person is also presenting at WP Campus.
Ah, it's a small world.
And he's presenting on the same thing with the Security Ninja.
Oh, neat.
Yes.
Is that a plug-in?
I think so. But that was their whole conference. They just centered on one topic. And what we talked about yesterday was having 2 sessions going on at the same time. So we have 2 different rooms, and maybe we can get 6 speakers. So we'll have maybe 2 tracks, but we really hadn't decided on it yet. We're just waiting to hear back from Higher Ed Web.
This is great. Would you mind giving just a very basic overview? I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes, because we don't want to keep Linda in the wings for very long.
Okay.
But give an update during the meetup, because I think this is something that people would like to see.
So I received my room confirmations earlier today, so that's how I So we do have these rooms confirmed. So one way or the other, we can go cancel if we need to. But we do have those 2 dates scheduled with the room confirmations.
Speaking of the July meeting, make sure that Linda is aware, at the very beginning, there'll be a few minutes of WebTide specific programming where we just give out updates on conferences, elements that are happening. It won't take long. And then the floor will be hers.
We need to give you a sign-up list for lunch, so we can have those printed out for next Thursday.
I certainly have to lunch. I think we just ordered, how many did you say? 30?
Well, a lot of times you have to have that for
Yeah,
backup.
typically, the purchasing will require
Yeah.
a roster. What we can do is they're not very picky about it. So what we can do, if for any reason we don't have a roster, we can usually just provide the roster of WebTide participants, and that usually suffices. But since we know ahead of time, we can put out a sign-up sheet. Okay. I wanted to give a little bit of an update going into the new discussion elements. I am working on putting together a dedicated place on the WebTide site to publish agenda and minutes. We talk about it a little bit in the main meetup meeting, but I would like to be able to have a repository where people can go back to see what was discussed. But also going forward, I would like to start baking in a bit of an agenda so that if there are particular elements that people may find interesting to discuss from a planning perspective of WebTide, then they can know we're going to discuss that. So I think that's going to make it easier for people to participate and make the trek here either digitally or in person. So for instance, if they know we're going to talk about the high-end web meetup, for instance, they may want to participate in that. But if we're going to talk about something a little more mundane, then they'll probably want to sit that out. And so it's hard for people to know what's going on and whether it's worth their time to participate in these meetings if we don't really have a lot of agenda. So that's something that I want to start slowly but surely kind of working towards, getting a little bit more organized with every step and every meeting that we do. Speaking of that, do we have any particular thoughts on where we would like that to live on the existing WebTide site? My current notion is to create a coordinating group subsection under who we are. Then agendas and meeting minutes would be kind of be a creature of that section. And also, we need to start publishing some of the boilerplate of our terms of service, elements like that we've discussed and we've talked about in the WebTide meetings, but we don't currently have it published on the website. So does that make sense to y'all? Do y'all have any other thoughts? Okay.
What about under our schedule? Do we have a link on the schedule and it lists what items are coming up
We do. Under
on the calendar?
calendar,
Do we
you
go through each section?
you can go directly to coordinating meetings.
Okay.
The function logic on the front page, I cannot get it to consistently pull all metadata for all meetings. It will only consistently pull it for whatever reason for the meetup meetings. Or else, what I would like the front page to do is to always show whatever the next WebTide event is, whether it's a meetup or whether it's a coordinating meeting or whatever, if it's a live stream. I'm working through some technical details on that. That being said, my main goal in terms of publishing on the front page was to, at the very least, make it always show the meetup information. Before you had to log in, Rachel had a superstructure where you had the website, but also there was a vision for using the WebTide website as a bit of an intranet for WebTide. So you would log in and you could participate in a digital directory and do a bunch of stuff. That never really fully congealed. And so some elements on the website are still sort of housed behind that firewall. And I'm kind of working bit by bit to pull those segments out into the public facing website. Because we don't talk about anything sufficiently under the table to warrant, I think, being behind a login anyway. Okay, so since that sounds good to y'all, I will make sure to provide an update on that for the next meeting. When would we like to punt the community session that we were going to hold in July? We have security coming up next month.
What's our next available month?
September.
It is September.
It is September. Security, and then September's open, October and November are open.
September might be better, because it's after classes start back.
Okay, that's the low hanging
mobile.
fruit would be to plug it in for September. Speaking of the community's topic, Tuscaloosa Web Makers is now Tuscaloosa Spark. Do we want to promote Tuscaloosa Spark in the same way that we do conferences, since it's a local item and WebTide members may like to have a bit of a window into what's happening in the broader Tuscaloosa scene that has a footprint in web production?
I think that's a good idea. Sure.
When is the next meeting for Tuscaloosa Spark?
I want to say it's this week. So this would probably, any promotion that we would do, it would happen after. I have talked with Ryan Marks and Eric, and they are totally open to actually having somebody from Tuscaloosa Spark give a little bit of a rundown on where they're going and where they see Tuscaloosa Spark. I do know, I think the program is changing a little bit to a general sort of technology focus. Like, for instance, I know that the last couple of sessions they've been focusing on programming for like builders, using little controller mechanisms and coding and to like audio assistance, things of that nature. So it's a bit, it could be a bit tangential, I don't know, in terms of programming focus. But I do still think they have a strong focus, though, in web services. So I just thought I'd mention it and see what y'all thought. Okay.
I think at the very least mentioning when they're getting together would be beneficial.
So is your focus still on WordPress, or have they branched out to other platforms?
They never really had specific focus on WordPress. They basically focused on anything and everything web. So virtual containers, sysadmin elements. They had a really neat session once on content management strategy from a marketing perspective. So they cast a pretty broad net historically. I do know that I think they've struggled a little bit getting consistent programming month to month, which is the reason why I think they're broadening their focus a little bit to try to broaden the appeal base a little bit, which I think is a really cool idea. Okay, so I'll see about adding their programming in next month. I need to do a little bit of research to see how far in the future they actually map out, when they meet and how consistent they are.
And also add their next meeting to our Twitter feed.
Yes. Speaking of our social media, do we think it would be a good idea to send out a ping for, I know we currently do for the meetups, but I don't think we do social media announcements for, like for instance, this live stream that we're going to be doing on Friday. And the coordinating meetings might be cool too. How do we feel about that?
It's good, because I put a few conferences on there, and there were WC Campus and Harriet Web. They're on there as the deadlines that are coming up.
Okay. Cool.
Still need to work on getting the latest tweets to show up on our website.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the plugging and the plumbing is on that. It's so peculiar. I may just end up turning that off for the time being, so that it's not giving out weird information.
For the tweets, you just having trouble getting them all to come through, or they come through sporadically?
It's not the most recent ones aren't consistently showing up. I think it's got something to do with the metadata.
I was never rerun. Looking at one of the screens that actually changed some of the way you have to connect them. They seem to change it once.
They change it all the time. As a matter of fact, this is one of the reasons why we've actually, when we build websites for departments, we're starting to kind of lean towards telling folks it might be good, particularly Twitter, not to pull that into the website. Just have a link that bops to the actual Twitter site, because you are exactly correct. Their APIs change often, and particularly when you're dealing with a plugin provider or third-party middleware, they may or may not update their software at the time.
And then now it looks like it's going to be required that you have a cell number associated with the campus.
For identity purposes.
And most of the departments are going to want to put the personal cell number on.
Can't imagine why. So did we say, going back to the communities conversation, did we say September for that, or?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
September.
Donald, did you hear back on social media for WebCon?
Concerning, I'm sorry.
Topic, having the social media folks come and do a bit of a presentation on social media practices from basically the human perspective. I think Tori mentioned it in one of his emails.
I have not.
Okay.
I'll double check.
Okay. Do you think you'd have time to hear back from that our next board meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Next meeting next month.
Yeah, next week. Yeah.
For sure.
So maybe October and November.
If we could get that locked in for September or October, that would be wonderful.
We're gonna push communities down if we get social media in September.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant October or November. Yeah, you're right. My brain slipped a gear.
And you want to do best practices.
Yeah. It's been about a year to date, I think, since they did their last presentation, and so I imagine that there's probably some new interesting stuff to share from an overall messaging strategy standpoint for the university that folks find really useful. Okay, so that would be October or November. Going to an observation that you made earlier about having programming from a process standpoint to help people know how to work particular pieces of software on campus. Do we have any good ideas on which direction may be good to focus on? Because I know that Duo is going to be probably covered in the security.
Yeah. Is there any particular software that there was interest in, or?
I don't know. It doesn't have to be software. It could be. I don't remember if we had a distinct presentation from OIT on like the networking world,
Yeah.
like VPN and other technologies that sort of have a footprint in our web production circles, something like that. Unfortunately, I don't have a specific prescriptive notion, but I thought you might.
I mean, someone from the networking team could come speak, but they typically don't.
Yeah.
I don't know what information they could provide that would be different or helpful. I mean,
It doesn't have to be that. I was just throwing things against the
I
wall.
know we talked about EDAS mainly,
speaking because they do some cool stuff, but
They
so
do.
many other projects they keep under lock and key. I don't even know what they're doing. So I'll think about it.
Okay, cool. That may be a good thing. That may be a good element to talk about during the next quarter. To start to lock down the fall programming.
Yeah.
By then, we'll know something about social media, and then that gives you some time to sort of.
Sure. So one thing, John gave a report in the Information Technology Committee. Kind of like, I wouldn't say it's an annual report, but it was basically, this is how much we've grown. This is how, what we've added. How we're changing out wireless, more access points, things like that.
Yeah.
It was some kind of general
Just kind of update.
OIT update on what they've been up to past year.
I remember this, as a matter of fact. It was like kind of a technology State of the Union.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was
yeah.
really cool
But it was
because
kinda
a lot of
cool.
people don't have a real window into all the cool things that go on day to day, and particularly over the course of a year or two. Because I don't remember when he did that report. A lot of elements have changed, but I only know about it because I go to the infrastructure.
Right.
thing.
And then DJ did a tour for the teaching learning committee on the data center. That might be something neat to do because a lot of people don't realize that that's there and what they house. And
Yeah, we might be able, because John's really busy in his dual role now, and he works for the systems office too. So he has less time than he used to. So maybe we could kind of combine that and have Scott do it all.
Yeah.
And have Scott kind of give us the state of the union or whatever. And then he loves to show off the data center too. So that's a possibility I could ask.
something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we just recently finished all of the core network upgrades, and the last bit is going to happen tomorrow. So I'm sure you can talk about that.
Cool. Are there any elements that you're aware of that people have consistent issues with going to the focus that you mentioned in the previous meeting of helping people out with their jobs?
Right.
Do we have any particular pain points that you see day to day that we might be able to help with in terms of the WebTide programming and getting awareness out there?
Just knowing that the software is available would be one thing. The only thing I can think of. Yeah. And then I guess the only pain point I can think of right now is Duo amongst a lot of faculty, and Ashley will cover that the month before.
Ashley's presentation is always really interesting, and I'm hoping that he brings along a couple of team members this time too to talk about security within the specific confines of website production like he did last time, because that was really cool as well, to kind of have a web production specific component in addition to his normal agenda, chat agenda. All right, that covers most of the items that were pertinent to ongoing business and also the new elements that we really had on our radar. Are there any new items that we would like to discuss before we call it a day?
SSB level access training is coming up in August, and I've got to get that registration complete. So I can get that link before then and put that on the site.
Is it August?
August 8th and 9th, I believe. So they're launching a new version of BAM, so it's going to be a little bit different. So we're going to get this to
When they launch it,
well,
Will we be getting the new version on the 8th and 9th?
no, you'll be getting it as well.
Okay.
I haven't even got it yet. So yeah, we'll see. It's supposedly the interface doesn't change that much. It's just the way the way the engine processes the reports. And
I was curious if a little bit of
Evaluations.
change was like.
they just rebuilt some of their process.
Gotcha.
So we'll see how it works.
Well, cool. It's good to see they're iterating.
We got that like $40 million endowment grant. training.
Wow,
Allowing them to
that would do it.
up some stuff. But that helps.
That is indeed.
The 2 days of enhanced training sessions, do you have locations yet, or?
It's going to be actual instructors. Well, and an engineer.
Ooh, that's
The
good.
one that actually, he did the remote training we did the first time. He's actually, since he's the one I talked to when it had major issues. So he's going to be here. Because we wanted them on campus to kind of target more workflow questions and how can I make this work for me? Because there's so many different types of workflows. So we're just trying to help, encourage the use of it.
When I went to EduCalls, they had a session on accessibility from a procurement perspective, from a vendor perspective. Not only from assessing whether a site's accessible, but also just in general. And they said that one of the University of California system we're talking, and they said from their perspective, a vital component is having the vendors being willing to actually bring engineers. Because just having marketing people come is great, but you're not getting a real sense of what the product can actually do and have some direct interaction with, okay, well, if you can't do these things, is it at least on the roadmap? It helps you make much better decisions. So the fact that they're sending an engineer, I think, is really fantastic.
Yes. To see, okay, you're having, see the actual issues that people are having.
Well, cool. Any other new tidbits?
If we want to just put upcoming dates, I know you get the information from coming to the security and infrastructure meetings, but just upcoming duo mandates. It's going to be mandatory for all students October 2nd. It's going to be mandatory for VPN August 21st. Mandatory for FA VPN August 1st. Mandatory for HIPAA VPN July 18th. And going to be mandatory for direct deposit changes later this month. So I don't know if we want to include things like that on our news for people, just in case a lot of times, just because you manage a website for your department, they might consider you the technical person. So it might be good to just get that information out to everybody.
What we may do is I've been cognizant of the fact that the email's coming denser and denser. It may be cool to bake elements like this into the beginning of the meetup. Upcoming for this month or upcoming.
Yeah.
An FYI. And that may be a good way to communicate. So that it doesn't get missed in just an avalanche of stuff in an email that's 90 paragraphs long and growing.
Yeah, the real important ones is just VPN August 21st and then students October 2nd.
Yes. Any other items? I actually clicked off of the Slack meetings. Yep, we're quiet there. So we did not ignore anybody. All right. Well, thank you all for crossing the barren heat. I was going to say wasteland. It's not really a wasteland. It's just
hot.
Yeah, it's just hot. And thank everyone who happened to catch us digitally. See you at the meetup.